The galaxy was wide and filled with countless stars, yet not every star brought peace and wonder. Some stars carried shadows, and from those shadows came the Therax. For thousands of years, this alien empire had moved from one world to another. They did not come as explorers, and they did not come as friends. They came as hunters. The Therax believed strength was the highest truth in the universe. To them, every new species was not a people but prey. They saw planets not as homes but as hunting grounds. The strong survived, the weak were broken, and the Therax took pride in making sure they were always the strong. When they reached a new system, their silver-black warships would darken the skies. These ships were shaped like jagged spears, sharp and cold, designed to strike terror before a single shot was fired. The Therax were skilled in battle, their weapons forged from metals unknown to weaker species. Their plasma cannons could burn through the strongest walls, and their soldiers wore armor that reflected the fire of suns. On countless worlds, the same story repeated. First, the Therax scouts came. They studied the land, the water, the cities, and the life. Then the hunters followed. The skies opened with fire, cities crumbled, and resistance collapsed. Some species begged for mercy. Others tried to fight. None succeeded. The Therax left behind ruins, taking survivors as slaves or game for their endless hunts. Among themselves, the Therax spoke of honor, but their honor was built only on blood and fear. They gathered trophies from each conquered world, skulls, weapons, banners, and memories of the ones they had destroyed. Their empire spread like a storm, and no one in the galaxy dared to oppose them. For many, the name of the Therax was enough to cause despair. But hunters always seek new prey, and the Therax had grown greedy. After centuries of conquest, they looked beyond their empire's edge. There they found a small blue world, circling a yellow star. To them it seemed ordinary, perhaps even weak. The world was Earth. The first scouts sent by the Therax saw humans for the first time. They watched from orbit, scanning cities, oceans, forests, and deserts. They saw billions of humans living across the globe. The Therax did not see unity. They saw division, nations, borders, different languages, and cultures. To the Therax, this looked like weakness. A divided prey was easy prey. In their records, they wrote of Earth as an easy hunt. Its technology was advanced but not equal to Therax weapons. Its armies were large but scattered. Its people were brave but not united. To the hunters, it seemed like just another world to add to their collection. The Therax Council gathered in their great chamber, a hall carved from black stone and lit with cold flames. The leaders sat high above the others, their armor heavy with the marks of past victories. They spoke of Earth as if the conquest was already won. "This world will fall quickly," one leader said. "Their armies will resist for a short time, but then they will kneel," another answered. "They will learn the law of the strong. They will be broken as all the others," the highest of the leaders declared. The council agreed and the order was given. The Therax fleet would prepare for war. As the ships moved through the dark of space, their warriors sharpened blades and polished armor. They looked at the star maps and marked Earth as their next trophy. In their eyes, it was only prey. They did not see the fire that waited within humanity. They did not see the will that had shaped humans through centuries of struggle. For on Earth, history was filled with stories of survival. Humans had faced storms, wars, famine, and disasters. They had learned to rise again after every fall. They had fought each other for power, but they had also learned to unite when faced with a greater threat. That hidden strength the Therax could not measure with their machines. The hunters thought they were coming to a simple world, ready to be taken. What they did not know was that Earth was different. Unlike the other species they had crushed, humans were not afraid to become hunters themselves. And so the Therax ships, sharp and bright against the endless night, set their course for the small blue planet. The hunters of the void were ready for their next victory. They did not realize that this time the hunt would not end as they expected. The first sign of the Therax invasion came not with sound but with silence. On a clear night, people across Earth saw strange lights moving in the skies. At first they thought it was only falling stars or satellites, but the lights did not fade. They grew brighter, sharper, and multiplied until hundreds of shining points drifted across the heavens. The world watched in awe. Telescopes turned upward, cameras captured the sight, and news spread within hours. The governments of Earth grew tense. Some believed it was a natural event, while others whispered it was something far greater. Then as the lights grew closer, doubt disappeared. The objects were not stars. They were ships. The Therax fleet arrived in orbit around Earth like a storm of metal. Their vessels were dark and jagged, shaped like spears and blades. They spread across the sky, blocking starlight as they formed a ring around the planet. Every nation could see them, and every leader knew the truth. Earth was no longer alone. Fear spread quickly, but it was not the kind the Therax expected. Cities remained active, and people did not fall to their knees. Instead, governments called for calm. Scientists demanded information. Armies moved into position. Humanity did not collapse in terror. Humanity prepared. From their ships above, the Therax studied this reaction with cold amusement. To them, it looked like foolish bravery. They had seen it before. Many species had tried to stand tall, only to break once fire rained down upon them. The Therax commanders gave their order. It was time for the first strike. Without warning, beams of plasma lit the skies. They struck small towns and isolated bases, reducing them to fire and ash in seconds. Explosions shook the ground, and black smoke rose into the heavens. The Therax expected screams, chaos, and surrender. But the humans did not answer in the way the hunters thought they would. Instead of panic, there was silence. Streets emptied as people moved into shelters. Radios went quiet not from fear but from discipline. Armies hid their weapons rather than rushing into hopeless battles. The Therax saw cities darken and believed it was fear. What they did not see was strategy. Across the globe, humans were watching. Soldiers, scientists, engineers, and even farmers saw the alien fire and understood. They could not fight the Therax with brute force, not yet. But they could learn. They could wait. They could strike at the right moment. In the skies, fighter jets rose to meet the alien ships, only to vanish into clouds, leaving no target. In forests, troops disappeared under the trees, carrying supplies to hidden camps. In deserts, communication posts were moved underground. Humans did not run in panic. They prepared in silence. The Therax grew restless. Their leaders wanted fear, and they wanted submission. Instead, they received shadows and silence. To test the humans, the hunters attacked again. They leveled villages, struck power plants, and destroyed bridges. Yet still, there was no great cry of surrender. From the orbiting ships, one commander spoke with irritation. Why do they not kneel? Why do they not beg? Where is their weakness? Another answered, they are hiding. They know they cannot win. They wait for us to break them fully. It is only a matter of time. But the truth was different. On the ground, humanity's leaders met in secret rooms. They shared information faster than ever before. Nations that had argued for years now spoke with one voice. They studied every movement of the Therax fleet, every shot fired, every weakness shown. The hunters thought Earth was silent because of fear. In reality, Earth was silent because it was planning. Night after night, the alien ships circled above. And night after night, humans watched them. Engineers worked to adapt old weapons. Hackers tried to break alien signals. Soldiers trained not for open battles, but for ambushes, traps, and survival. The silence of Earth was not surrender. It was the calm before the storm. The Therax, blinded by their pride, did not see the truth. They thought they had already won. They thought humans were like every other prey. But deep in the cities, in the forests, and under the oceans, humans whispered to each other. They spoke not of fear, but of determination. One farmer in a quiet village said to his son, "They believe they are the hunters." But hunters can also bleed. A soldier in a hidden base told her team, "They do not understand us yet. They will learn." And in the highest halls of power, leaders agreed on a single plan. Earth would not kneel. Earth would not surrender. Humanity would wait, and when the time came, it would strike back. The Therax had come expecting prey. What they had found was a world ready to turn silence into resistance. Above the blue planet, the hunters watched with cold eyes. On the ground below, humans sharpened their will. The true war had not yet begun, but the first seeds of it were already planted. The hunters had arrived in silence. Soon they would understand what that silence meant. The days after the first strikes were heavy with smoke and silence. Alien fire had burned villages and destroyed bases, but still the humans did not give up. From the shadows of forests, mountains, and deserts, people began to gather. They were not just soldiers. They were engineers, farmers, doctors, and workers. Together they formed the first lines of resistance. The Therax had expected open battles. They were used to enemies charging forward in desperate waves. They had armor strong enough to block such attacks and weapons sharp enough to cut through them. But what they found on Earth was different. The humans did not rush to fight head-on. They waited, they hid, and then they struck when the time was right. In the forests of Europe, a small group of humans watched from the trees as a Therax patrol marched along a dirt road. The aliens moved with confidence, their armor shining under the sun, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. To the Therax, it was a simple patrol. To the humans, it was an opportunity. The signal was given and ropes snapped. Trees that had been cut halfway through fell across the road, blocking the path. Before the aliens could react, hidden charges exploded, shaking the ground. Smoke and dust filled the air. From the trees, humans fired old rifles and improvised rockets. The Therax tried to respond, but their vision was clouded, their formation broken. Within minutes, the patrol was gone and the humans vanished back into the forest. The Therax commanders were confused. They were used to victory in open fields, not losses in hidden ambushes. They called the humans cowards for hiding in trees and caves. But the humans did not care what names the aliens used. They cared only for survival and victory. In the deserts, resistance fighters used the land itself as a weapon. They dug tunnels beneath the sand, moving unseen beneath the feet of their enemies. When Therax machines rolled forward, the ground erupted beneath them, swallowing metal and fire. The aliens, heavy in their armor, struggled under the burning sun. The humans, light and swift, struck and vanished before the hunters could catch them. In the cities, engineers and soldiers worked together to turn every street into a trap. Bridges were rigged to collapse. Buildings were hollowed out to hide fighters, and tunnels were dug to move supplies. Therax patrols walked into empty streets, only to find themselves surrounded by fire from windows and rooftops. The aliens were skilled in war, but they were not skilled in this kind of war. They had strength, but humans had cunning. They had power, but humans had patience. One Therax soldier spoke with anger to his commander. "They do not fight with honor. They strike and run. They hide in the shadows." The commander answered, "It does not matter. Shadows cannot defeat us. Soon they will break." But even as he spoke, he knew the truth. For the first time, the Therax were bleeding. The humans did not fight alone. Scientists studied the wreckage of alien machines, pulling apart weapons and armor. They worked day and night, trying to understand how the technology functioned. Small discoveries were passed to the fighters. A piece of armor became a shield. A broken cannon was turned into a trap. Every fallen Therax became a lesson. The hunters did not understand this way of thinking. To them, prey was prey. They did not expect prey to learn from the hunter's tools. Yet humans adapted faster than the aliens could predict. In one mountain pass, a group of villagers armed with stolen alien rifles stood against a squad of Therax warriors. The battle was short but fierce. When it ended, the villagers were gone, but the aliens had fallen too. The message was clear. No corner of Earth was safe for the hunters. Whispers spread across the galaxy. Other enslaved species heard the first rumors. They heard that the Therax had found resistance on a small blue world. At first, they did not believe. No one had resisted the hunters before. But as days turned into weeks, the whispers grew. On Earth, humans continued to fight in silence and shadows. They did not yet have the strength to face the alien fleet head-on, but they had something more powerful than weapons. They had unity of spirit and a will to survive. The Therax had hunted many species, but none had fought like this. None had struck from forests, deserts, mountains, and cities with such creativity. The hunters began to feel something strange. It was not respect, not yet. It was unease. One night, as the fleet circled above Earth, a Therax commander stood at the window of his ship. He looked down at the dark planet below and frowned. "They are not breaking," he said quietly. "They are waiting." And in the silence of Earth's night, hidden fires burned. The first resistance had begun, and it was only the beginning. The Therax expected their enemy to break apart. They believed humans would blame each other, fight among themselves, and collapse as so many other species had done before. But on Earth, something very different was happening. The first strikes had shocked the world, yet instead of division, they brought a rare unity. Leaders who had once stood on opposite sides now sat together in secret meetings. Nations that had been rivals for centuries began to share their knowledge, their weapons, and their resources. For the first time in history, Earth moved as one. A general from one country spoke to another across a glowing screen. "If we fight alone, we will fall. If we fight together, we have a chance." The answer came without hesitation. Then together it must be. It was not easy. Old arguments rose. Old mistrust tried to take root. but the sight of alien ships circling above silenced those voices. The threat was greater than any border, any past conflict. Humanity finally saw itself not as many nations, but as one people. On the ground, this unity spread quickly. Engineers from different lands shared designs to turn factories into workshops for resistance weapons. Scientists who had never spoken before now worked side by side, studying alien metal, hacking alien signals, and building machines no one nation could have created alone. In the mountains, soldiers from different armies trained together. They shared tactics, languages, and strategies. What once divided them became strength. One soldier said to another, "Your way of fighting is not mine, but together both ways are stronger." In the oceans, fleets that once guarded their own waters now joined in a single command. Submarines, carriers, and small boats all formed a hidden shield beneath the waves. The Therax did not expect resistance from the sea, but they were wrong. Even in the skies, pilots from across the world shared information. Old aircraft were repaired and upgraded, fitted with weapons designed to pierce alien shields. Drones flew in swarms, guided by signals that crossed continents. What one pilot learned in battle was shared with all. The Therax saw some of this and grew uneasy. They had faced many worlds, but none had united so quickly. To them, unity was unnatural. They had built their empire on fear and domination, never cooperation. They could not understand how a divided species could suddenly stand together. In one hidden base, a scientist explained the truth to his team. "We have always argued. We have always struggled with each other. But when something greater threatens us, we remember. We remember that we are stronger together. That is what the Therax do not see." The results of this unity soon became clear. Attacks that had once been small and scattered now grew larger, more organized. Resistance groups in different parts of the world began to strike at the same time, forcing the Therax to divide their forces. Hidden camps shared supplies across borders, so no group was left alone. In one battle, a city under attack called for aid. Within hours, fighters from 3 different nations arrived, bringing weapons and food. They struck the aliens from all sides, driving them back and saving the city. The people cheered not for one flag, but for humanity. The Therax commanders tried to explain these failures. "The humans fight harder because they are desperate," one said. "No," another replied. "They fight harder because they fight as one." For the first time, the Therax began to doubt. They had underestimated Earth. Meanwhile, the humans grew bolder. Small victories became greater ones. Resistance fighters captured alien weapons and turned them against the hunters. Scientists found ways to jam Therax signals, blinding their patrols. Engineers built shields strong enough to resist plasma blasts for a few seconds longer. Each second gave humans more chances to strike. But the greatest weapon was not steel, not fire, and not machines. The greatest weapon was unity. A farmer in Asia shared food with soldiers from Europe. A doctor in Africa treated wounded fighters from South America. A scientist in North America sent discoveries to engineers in the Middle East. Humanity had never moved with such shared purpose. The Therax still held the skies. Their fleet still circled like wolves waiting for the kill. But on the ground, the hunters were learning a lesson they had never faced before. Prey that stood together was no longer prey. Prey that fought as one could become the hunter. One evening, in a hidden command center deep underground, Earth's leaders looked at a map of the world. Red marks showed alien patrols. Green marks showed resistance forces. The map was alive with activity. A leader spoke softly but with strength. "They came here believing they would hunt us, but they have given us something greater. They have given us unity," another leader nodded. "And with unity we will not only survive, we will fight back." Above the blue planet, the Therax fleet continued its silent watch. But beneath the surface, something new was growing. Not fear, not despair, but unity, strong enough to challenge even the greatest hunters of the void. For centuries, the Therax had been the hunters. They had moved from world to world, taking whatever they wanted and leaving nothing behind. But on Earth, the rules had begun to change. Humanity was no longer hiding in fear. Humanity had learned. Humanity was ready to turn the hunt around. The first step came in the forests of North America. Small teams of resistance fighters used what they had learned from the aliens. They watched patrols, studied their movements, and discovered weak points in armor and weapons. When the Therax moved, humans struck from shadows, cutting supply lines and capturing small squads of alien soldiers. Every encounter gave them more information and more courage. The hunters did not expect this. In their experience, prey ran or begged. They had never seen prey adapt so quickly and certainly not so boldly. Across Europe, engineers worked night and day. Alien weapons captured in early skirmishes were examined and studied. Scientists discovered ways to reverse the energy flow in the Therax plasma guns, causing them to malfunction. Tanks and ships were repaired and fitted with new defenses. Humans built machines and traps that the aliens could not have imagined. In the deserts of Africa, resistance teams used the heat and sand to their advantage. They dug tunnels beneath alien vehicles, filled them with explosives, and detonated them at the perfect moment. Alien patrols were destroyed and humans were never seen. The hunters were learning a lesson they had never taught before. Patience and cunning could be as deadly as strength. Even in the oceans, humanity fought back. Submarines and small ships used the cover of deep water to attack alien supply lines. Mines, torpedoes, and nets slowed the advance of the Therax. They had weapons for almost every situation. But the humans adapted faster than the aliens could respond. Each strike grew bolder, each attack more organized. The turning point came when humans discovered a way to disrupt the Therax communication network. Hackers from different continents worked together, sharing knowledge across borders. Signals were jammed, coordinates were scrambled, and the aliens could no longer communicate as efficiently. Confusion spread through the fleet, and small victories on the ground multiplied. In the mountains of Asia, a group of humans trapped a Therax squad. Using stolen weapons, the humans ambushed the hunters. For the first time, the Therax felt what it was like to be prey. They fought with skill, but the humans had the advantage of planning and surprise. The hunters fell one by one as humans vanished into the forest with their spoils. The news spread quickly. Humanity was no longer on the defensive. Humans had become hunters themselves. Across Earth, resistance teams coordinated attacks, struck together, and captured alien technology. Every success boosted morale and encouraged more people to join the fight. Even the Therax High Command began to notice. For the first time in history, reports came of losses that could not be explained by mistakes. Entire patrols disappeared, fleets were ambushed, supply lines vanished. The hunters began to fear the hunted. One Therax commander spoke to his fleet. "They are learning too fast. They are turning our weapons against us." Another replied, "It is impossible. Prey cannot become the hunter." But the reality could not be denied. Humans were adapting, striking, and surviving in ways no one had expected. They were proving that strength alone did not decide the battle. Strategy, courage, and unity mattered just as much. In secret bases around the world, leaders of the human resistance met and planned their next steps. They shared maps of alien positions, weaknesses, and patrol patterns. Every nation contributed, every mind was valued. They had turned fear into knowledge and knowledge into power. The hunters had underestimated the humans. They had believed in weakness where there was none. They had expected surrender where there was determination. Now they faced a species that could strike back, hide, and survive. The game had changed. In one final daring raid, humans captured a Therax landing ship. Scientists and engineers immediately studied it. Within hours, they understood how to use it to move quickly across Earth's surface, striking the aliens in unexpected places. The hunters were being hunted, and every attack left them weaker and more cautious. Even from orbit, the Therax began to see the truth. Earth was not a planet to be conquered. Earth was a challenge. The hunters, who had never faced defeat, were learning to fear the prey that refused to yield. And so, humanity continued to strike. They used the land, the sea, and the skies. They used every resource, every mind, and every skill. They had learned the rules of the hunt, and now they were rewriting them. The Therax fleet, once confident and invincible, was beginning to falter. For the first time, they understood that the hunter could become the hunted. For the first time, they realized that Earth was not just another prey. Earth was a force they had underestimated, a planet that would not surrender. Humanity had turned the hunt on its head. The lesson was clear: strength alone could not win the war. Determination, unity, and intelligence could defeat even the greatest hunters of the galaxy. The Therax had faced resistance before, but nothing like this. For the first time in their history, they were not the unstoppable force. Humanity had grown stronger, faster, and smarter. The hunters who once roamed the galaxy without challenge now faced a world that would not bend. The Therax High Command decided to send their strongest fleet. Ships larger and deadlier than any before were assembled. The commanders believed that overwhelming force would crush Earth completely. Every weapon, every soldier, every machine was prepared for total destruction. They expected fear and submission, but humans had learned from every encounter. They had studied every pattern, memorized every patrol route, and discovered weaknesses the Therax did not know they had. The fleets above Earth could no longer strike without planning. Every attack was met with traps, ambushes, and resistance unlike anything in the galaxy. In the mountains of South America, humans had prepared carefully. They had built hidden bunkers and tunnels. As alien troops advanced, they triggered explosives beneath the enemy's path. The ground shook. Metal screamed. Soldiers fell. When the smoke cleared, the humans had vanished, leaving the hunters confused and battered. Meanwhile, in the forests of Europe, resistance fighters used stolen technology to jam alien communications. Squadrons of ships, once coordinated and deadly, now moved in confusion. Some fired on their own allies while others fell into traps set by humans. What had seemed like unstoppable power was crumbling under cunning and strategy. In Asia, underground factories produced weapons adapted from alien technology. Fighters were trained not only to strike but also to survive. They moved silently, attacked swiftly, and vanished before the hunters could respond. Every small victory taught the humans more. Every lesson made them stronger. Even the oceans became a battlefield. Submarines and underwater teams disrupted supply lines and attacked alien vessels. Mines and nets sank ships meant to transport Therax soldiers and equipment. The hunters, who had never known fear, now experienced panic and loss. From orbit, the Therax commanders watched with disbelief. Their strongest fleet, their greatest soldiers, were being weakened by a species they had expected to fall easily. They could not understand it. Their technology was superior, their experience unmatched, yet humans were surviving and striking back. One commander spoke sharply to another. "They are not like the others. They do not break. They do not beg. They adapt," another replied with frustration. "This should be impossible. They are only humans. They cannot defeat us," but it was happening. Humans were using the planet itself as a weapon. They had turned forests, mountains, rivers, deserts, and cities into a maze of resistance. No movement was unnoticed. No path was safe. Every attack on the humans cost the Therax more than it should. In a daring strike, human forces captured a Therax supply ship. Engineers quickly learned how to use it, turning it into a transport for resistance teams. They moved across continents, striking at multiple targets at once. Entire alien squads vanished in coordinated attacks. The hunters were losing ground and control. Even the Therax soldiers began to feel fear. They had never been afraid of prey. They had never doubted themselves. But Earth was different. The humans did not fight as individuals. They fought as one. Every attack taught them more, and every defeat taught the Therax something new about the humans' determination. In secret bases around the world, leaders of the resistance gathered. They planned their next moves carefully. Maps were covered with markers showing enemy positions, human teams, and potential ambush points. Every strike was coordinated, every tactic tested. Humans had learned the art of war from the hunters themselves and improved upon it. The Therax fleet above Earth was no longer the unstoppable force it once was. Patrols were cut down, supply lines destroyed, and soldiers lost in ambushes. The hunters who had traveled the galaxy with impunity were now uncertain, cautious, and afraid. One alien officer, speaking to his commander, whispered, "We underestimated them. We should have destroyed them before they learned. Now we face something we cannot control." The commander said nothing, staring at the blue planet below. For the first time, he felt the weight of failure. The humans were not only surviving, they were winning. Slowly, methodically, they were turning the war to their favor. And on the ground, humans continued their work. They did not celebrate victories, but they did not fear defeat. Every fallen soldier, every captured machine, every successful strike added to their strength. They had turned fear into strategy, confusion into power, and patience into triumph. The breaking point had come. The Therax High Command realized that brute force alone could not win the war. They had faced no prey like this before. The humans were not only surviving, they were preparing to strike back with full force. For the first time, the hunters felt what it meant to be hunted. The Therax fleet had grown cautious. Their soldiers, once confident, now moved with hesitation. Every path seemed dangerous, every forest, city, and river a trap. The hunters who had conquered countless worlds now faced prey that would not bow, prey that had learned to fight back in ways they could not anticipate. Humanity had grown stronger with each battle. Farmers, engineers, soldiers, and scientists had all joined the fight. They had shared knowledge, weapons, and skills across continents. They had turned Earth into a fortress, and they had learned to turn the hunters' own power against them. The first major counterattack began in the skies. Human pilots, flying both old jets and modified alien crafts, struck the Therax fleet from unexpected directions. Using jamming devices and homemade weapons, they disabled the communications of entire squadrons. Alien ships collided, fired on each other by mistake, or fell to the ground in flames. The hunters were beginning to taste the fear they had spread for centuries. On the ground, resistance forces coordinated with the strikes from above. Teams blocked supply routes, destroyed bridges, and trapped alien patrols in cities that had become labyrinths. What had once been a simple path for the Therax now became a deadly obstacle course. Humans moved through it with precision and speed. Every ambush succeeded. Every trap worked. In the mountains, humans captured Therax soldiers alive, using them to study weaknesses and gather intelligence. They learned how the hunters communicated, how their weapons functioned, and how their strategies worked. Each captured soldier became a key to victory, and each escape of a human fighter from alien grasp taught more lessons. The hunters began to retreat in some areas. Fleets that had once been bold and unbreakable were forced to fall back. Patrols that had moved with certainty now moved with caution. The Therax High Command struggled to maintain control, unable to understand how prey had learned to dominate. In one daring operation, human teams used a captured alien transport to move quickly across the planet. They struck at command centers, disabling fleets and capturing alien leaders. The humans had become the hunters in every sense. The planet was no longer theirs to defend, it was theirs to control. The Therax commanders grew desperate. Their pride, built over thousands of years, was crumbling. They could not understand how a single planet had turned the tide of war. Reports of losses poured in from every corner of the globe. Entire squads of their soldiers had vanished. Ships were destroyed or captured. The hunters who had once been unstoppable were now on the defensive. Even the galaxy watched in surprise. Other species who had been enslaved or hunted by the Therax began to rise. They saw Earth fighting back and realized that the hunters could be defeated. Slowly, one by one, oppressed worlds joined the humans in defiance. The Therax Empire, once feared across the stars, began to collapse. On Earth, the leaders of humanity gathered to coordinate the final strikes. They planned carefully, ensuring that every attack would weaken the Therax further while protecting human lives. Scientists developed new weapons, engineers repaired damaged equipment, and soldiers prepared for the final battles. The unity of humanity had grown into a force strong enough to challenge even the greatest empire in history. The final confrontation came in orbit above Earth. Fleets clashed with fury. Beams of energy lit the darkness of space as humans attacked from every angle. Alien ships were destroyed, captured, or forced to flee. The hunters were no longer hunting. They were running. On the surface, humans coordinated strikes that mirrored the chaos in orbit. Cities, forests, and mountains became battlefields where humans struck quickly and disappeared. Alien patrols were cut off and supply lines collapsed. The hunters, once confident and cruel, had become prey. In the final moments, the Therax High Command realized that they had underestimated humanity. They had expected fear and surrender. They had expected prey. Instead, they found a species that refused to bow, refused to break, and refused to be hunted. Humanity had taught them what it meant to face a true opponent. When the last alien ships retreated, Earth stood victorious. Humanity had not only defended itself, it had turned the hunters into the hunted. The planet had survived, grown stronger, and inspired hope across the galaxy. Other species who had been enslaved now joined humanity, inspired by the courage and unity that had defeated the greatest hunters the galaxy had ever known. Together they began to rebuild, not only their worlds, but a new order where strength was measured not by domination, but by courage, unity, and wisdom. On Earth, people celebrated quietly, but with pride. They remembered the lives lost, the battles fought, and the lessons learned. They had faced an enemy that had never failed before, and they had triumphed. And in the vast darkness of space, the Therax fled, knowing that their empire could no longer prey on the weak without facing the fury of Earth. For the first time in history, Hunters had been taught that prey could rise, fight, and win. Humanity had survived. Humanity had grown stronger. Humanity had become a force the galaxy would never forget.